you see people where you're like, they've convinced themselves that they really want to take their business to the next level, yet they don't want to do the thing, which is spending the money to actually get it there? Because there's no question, after they look at your stuff and kind of go through some of your funnels and the things that kind of build you up as what you've done, like they'll know, like, okay, this guy Jason's got an answer.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you see that with a lot of people where like you can get them to the next level, but they're just not willing to spend the money or spend the time or whatever resources necessary to do it? And like, what do you think's the difference maker between the person that's like that and the person that's willing to do the thing, as far as spend the money, spend the time to actually get it done?
Yeah. I mean, dude, the biggest thing that I see is like, you got to look at stats, right? 89% of businesses fail within 5 years. So even if we had a room of 100 business owners, 11 of them are likely going to get past the 3-year mark. And then from 3 to 5 years, another 90% of those people drop off because a
Wow.
market changes, or something happens in an industry.
Yep.
Or something makes a lot of people sick, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So it's this thing where, like, when I look at, because people don't like agencies, okay? They work with marketing firms and they put time and money into it, right? And they're like, oh, this didn't work, this is that, this is etc. But like, here's the problem with the whole agency space, okay? I think it's due to the fact that most agencies are sold from a biz op standpoint, okay? If you are, and we can, we're not going to throw names, but like, there's people on the internet who sell a program to build an agency. Here's the fastest way to make 10K a month, right? Build your own SMMA, social media marketing agency. They build an agency, and then they realize that they really don't have the right skills to actually take a business that they're trying to service to the next level, and all they care about is ads. And that's where the drop off is. Like, ads are 1/5 of the answer. Like I need to know, like, what's your customer journey? Like, what are your offers? What's your conversion rates? Like, what are the numbers in your business? Is your team and leadership good? Like, what are all these things that actually build a business? But when you start talking about ads, that's what people want to hear. That's all they care
Well,
about.
it's like the quick fix, right? It's
Yes,
just
they
throw
want
money
to.
at
Yeah,
this problem, but if I have no sales or follow up, or my team sucks, then it's like, well, what's the point of spending all that money? So is that what you're finding a lot?
yeah, and we're not perfect either. Like,
Yeah.
we have clients. We have a good success rate, but we have clients where we get them a ton of leads, and they're like, "Oh, we get them on the phone and they don't want to buy." I'm like, "That's not our fault.
It's the
That's your
leads, bro.
fault. You suck on the
Yeah,
phone."
the sales team.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, that's not what we want to hear. Let's fix the ads. Is the targeting right?" I'm like, "No, you suck." And they're like, "Oh, like, I didn't want to hear that." I'm like, "Yeah, because it's the truth."
Right.
And then we can throw them the sales training, but then they're like, "Oh, that's expensive. I don't want to pay for it." I'm like, "Okay, so we have a problem. We have a solution. You know that if we solve the problem, you're going to make more money, but you don't want to pay for it." It's a self-belief issue. Like, you could take a business to the basis of your question, like, why don't people spend money? Because they just don't believe in themselves enough. Like, the whole goal on the internet and businesses in general was, for the longest time, is to make $10,000 a month. Change your life, have freedom, make 10 grand a month. To be honest, man, you're not going to change your life for 10 grand a month. It just
No.
doesn't happen. Unless you're a single person with no kids and you live in a $1,500 a month apartment, your life won't change at 10 grand a month. So, like, it's just this status quo that was pushing the industry. But then when you tell business owners that there's all these bottlenecks, and like, we use like a pitch deck on calls, so we have like this whole graph of how businesses move from 6, 7 to 8 figures, and there's like over 18 different facets or buckets that they need to pour water into. And when they see that, they're like, "Oh, are you going to do all that for me?" And I'm like, "Not all of it, but I'm giving you a descriptor of what your business should look like as you go from 6, 7, and 8 figures. There's bottlenecks you need to fix." "Oh, but I just want someone to do it for me." You're an idiot. Okay, it's not the way the world works, right? Me fixing your sales systems and your lifetime value and your product ladders, I can tell you to release new products and services, but if you don't want to release them, that's not on me. I could tell you, "Hey, go pay, go find somebody who's a customer success manager, put them into your business, have ascension calls, and sell them into a mastermind or a group coaching or something else." You don't want to do it? Cool, stay poor. Like, there's these things where we tell people to do things and they just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we give them the price of what it would be done for you, they're like, "Hell no." So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a self-belief issue for sure.
And I think it could be like a scarcity mindset. You know what I mean? Like if I let this go, it's not going to come back, right? Like, and I think that when you're scarce, you can never create abundance out of a scarcity mindset.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've seen that. It's easy to have, because if you're raised like myself, like a lot of people probably watching this podcast, like Jason, I know you've talked about kind of your upbringing. Like a lot of us weren't raised with 7-figure income earner parents, right? Like, so by nature, by default, we kind of just embody that same survival mindset, lack mindset that they've kind of cultivated and have established in your upbringing. It's what you've experienced, right? And it almost happens without even an awareness or understanding. It's just like you kind of think the way they think. They said, hey, money doesn't grow on trees. So it's like by nature what you say and kind of what you believe. And that's a lack mindset. You know what I mean? And so I think that for one, like choosing even personal growth and development to help you elevate your mindset might be one of the most important things a business owner can do, because now they start to see things differently. Like your mentor, like Gary, your first mentor that was kind of helping you, or like the Ty Lopez program. You start going through that and you start to see things differently. Now you're able to lift that lack mindset and say, no, man, like this makes more sense. Like, and I think that's such an important thing for anybody to level up in any area, especially if you're running a business. Like, what's your personal development program will look like? If you don't got one, man, like I know if I didn't go through and spend the money on personal growth and development, like there's no possible way I wouldn't have bought breakfast for somebody. You know what I mean? Because it's like I need to have breakfast for myself tomorrow. Like there's no way I would have let go and been able to sow seeds. But dude, money's like it's interesting once you start understanding the way it really works. But I think that's an important part of that, right? And so like on your journey, what was something like, for you, Jason, that like was a breakthrough moment as far as an educational course? I know you said Ty Lopez, but like something that really kind of helped you just like elevate and see things differently than the way you saw, than you saw them at the time, but as you were growing up. And like, what kind of was a big shift for you, like breakthrough?
The biggest thing was actually just like first off auditing my circle, because I had a lot of friends that I was trying to like hang on to because they didn't want to hurt their feelings. So like getting rid of those friends was the first piece, like that auditing process. And then the second, dude, I went to a lot of events. Like being in environments where everybody's motivated, everyone's happy, everyone's just like in this high energy. Doing events was huge.
Yeah.
And I would go to small ones, like nothing insane, but like, pay $47 here, 97, 197, whatever it was. Like I would always try to be in the best rooms possible.
Smart.
And then another thing for me was like for personal development, I kind of do a lot of stuff on my own. I'm not gonna lie. Like I didn't invest a lot of money into personal development right away because I thought that I had a lot of childhood traumas to get over first. Like there were a lot of things I didn't even talk about. They like, dude, I had a huge fallout with basketball. Like I was a really good basketball player going into ninth grade. I was getting recruited to play D1, and then shit just fell through because everybody else hit puberty and I didn't. And that was one of my biggest letdowns was definitely basketball for sure. And like I thought that was my identity for so long, and I had to get past that too, because a lot of people, when I talk to business owners right now, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, dude, like I'm the hardest working person you'll know. Like I was starting quarterback in high school. I'm like, bro, you're 40 years old. Who gives a fuck about high school? Like, what is this? No. So it's this thing where I had to get past all the childhood traumas first, and that helped me kind of like rediscover like what my new identity was without getting wrapped up in money so much too. Because my parents weren't really that rich. Like we maybe brought in 7-8 grand a month. In New York, that's really not a lot of money. So like we had to figure shit out. And like the difference between a $60 pair of sneakers and a $100 pair of sneakers was a lot to my dad. Like that was the difference between us like eating at Perkins or eating leftovers. So like that was the biggest difference for me, was that I had to learn money through a different lens. And Greg taught me a lot, dude. Greg was so like, he was just so open arms with me, and he was paying me at the same time. Like there's very few people who are willing to do that sometimes. But like, yeah, that was definitely it for me. But the events helped out a ton. I met a lot of cool people through events. It also allowed me to travel for a reason and turn it into a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Like traveling plus vacation plus increasing social circle plus increasing like overall ambiance and like self-love for sure definitely helped.
It's good. Really good. Dude, I would say you talk about like identity, like who are you as you're growing up? You were the basketball player, then you stayed 411 for what, 5 years, right? And then you were the deli guy, you're the culinary guy, now you're the ad guru, right? So like identity is a big thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. Like, who am I, right? And I think even adults as they're going through life and they got kids and families. Like, dude, who am I? I'm now this 35-year-old guy who does XYZ. Like, is this who I'm called to be? Like, did you ever question, like, in your journey, even now, like, dude, you got all the money in the world, like you've reached what people would call like success, right, in the eyes of many. Like, what does that identity look like now? Like, is this I'm that guy, I made it, or is it like what's kind of next? Like, who are you as you're on this?
Yeah, dude, that's a great question. I mean, the biggest thing that I just wanted for my journey was like when people think about ads, they think about me.
Yeah,
Like when people think about basketball, they think about Kobe Bryant, LeBron, and Jordan.
yeah,
Like I kind of just wanted to be in a conversation about what niche I was in. I never wanted to, because there are people who make money behind the scenes, but I didn't want to be behind the scenes.
that
Like
was another question I had.
I didn't want to do that. I'm
Yeah,
like, bro, I want to scream and shout and let it all out. Like
yeah,
fuck it, like that's what I wanted to do.
yeah,
And like my brand is tactical. It's also a little mindset driven, but like it is very controversial. There's a lot of things in videos that I post online that are just like controversial, but I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think it gets more views, and more views equals more money, and like that's very true. Um, but it's like, dude, I was always, and I have ADHD too, so like there's no way I can make money behind the scenes.
yeah.
Like I'm all over the place.
What's that?
Like,
Were you ever like, as criticism came or the bad comments came, or like, dude, this dude's an idiot. Like, what is he? He doesn't know what he's talking about, kind of thing. Like, how did you deal with that kind of on the come up, right? Because
um,
like in my field, like I'm a pastor, right?
yeah.
And I'm also in business, and so it's like there's this very fine line as far as like being controversial or saying stuff to offend a certain audience. Like, you don't want
Yeah.
to. Not that I like wrestle with that, but it's like there's a certain identity that you kind of take on, right? So it's like for you, how did you deal with like some of that criticism, or like you're just like, screw it, this is who I am?
Well, I always took the line from Grant. It's like if you're not getting hate, you're not doing it right.
Yeah,
And that was the thing. Like I always figured I was like, all right, the more hate we get, the more leads we get, the more revenue we do. And dude, it just lined up that way.
that's
Like
good.
regardless, if you take on a bunch of like even big, actresses and music artists like Justin Bieber and all these guys, like, dude, they get so much hate. But they're also mysterious people. And that's what keeps people on the hook is the
Yeah.
mysteriousness.
Most people, and I guess I'd almost be categorizing people as in what was overwhelmed with and struggled with is like all those different pieces. Like, when you said they think it's just an ad, like it's the upfront offer, the funnels, all that kind of stuff. It could be overwhelming, and it all plays a part. Like you could have all the other stuff dialed in and one piece off, right? So like as you go through and you've worked with business owners, what's been like the most common thing that most businesses kind of have the wrong interpretation or perspective or belief about how to be successful in the ad space to generate more clients?
So biggest thing, I actually made a Loom video about this. I posted on Instagram. I'm gonna start doing a lot more Loom videos, like where I'm just sharing my screen, giving people tactical stuff to make more money, especially with ads. And the video that I made was talking about LTV and actually somebody's buying process through a click.
Right.
So like when people run ads, they just assume that, hey, I got traffic, I have to make money. No. And I showed this example. I have so many examples of people who have been in my ecosystem for months. And this guy clicked on an ad, joined my email list, went to a free webinar, bought a low ticket product, waited 2 months, clicked a YouTube video, did all these actions, and I tracked him. And then he wind up spending for our mastermind $500 a week for coaching for the whole year. And I had to warm that guy up for literally
For sure.
months. And people spend money on ads and they don't realize, like, what am I tracking? What's my lifetime value? What's that customer worth? Did they book a call? How do we nurture them? Are they on the list? Are we sending emails? All the things that happen after the click that are completely misconcepted in the entire ad space. Like, and the crazy part is that people still, even when they're spending money on ads, they don't take a step back and say, yo, I'm spending all this money on ads. I should dial in my ecosystem too while I'm spending money. But they just assume that the ad takes care of everything.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to, because they just suck and they're lazy. And that's the problem. So it's like, it's these things that, we talk about accountability. Accountability comes in the forms of many things. It's either life situations, experience, or you're spending money and you got to figure this shit out. Or you're losing. It's like fear of loss.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, for me, when I was spending a ton of money on ads, like the amount of money we spend now on ads every day, like, bro, if I don't do,
Yeah.
we're like, that's the way it is. So I have to make sure that when we're spending the money on the book funnel and book calls, like, yo, is that sales guy trained? Does he need to get on a call tomorrow morning on the morning meeting? Like, is he going to show up? All right, cool. Like, we need to train him more because his close rate the last week was shit. And then this setter, Okay, we have to fix her script. Like all these things are happening because every dollar that I'm spending, I need to stretch it as far as possible.
Yeah.
But when people try to go cheap with it, they don't get results because it's like, yeah, it's the money that I'm willing to lose, not the money that we have to lose to figure out your problem. And your problem is that you don't make any money. So like people do that at like a bare minimum. They look at the funniest thing, dude, is this word that people throw out there. It's a B word. It's called budget. I have never done any of that in my entire life. People are like, oh, we have a marketing budget. I'm like, no, you don't. You're an idiot. And they're like, oh, like, no, we have a money that we could spend on ads. I'm like, no, you're doing that because if we only spend 3 grand a month, the most you can make is maybe 10. How much do you want to make a month? Okay, cool. Yeah, pull the money out of your savings and let's actually run ads. And like, dude, I've just never had a budget before. I don't even know if that exists. Especially in our business, like we do KPI based budgets, but like we don't do marketing budgets. That shit doesn't exist. So we have like a payroll thing where, and this is across any industry, your payroll should be 25% of your gross income. Like those are KPIs to drive. But then it's like COGS, you got cost of goods sold, you got softwares, you got whatever miscellaneous. But like ads, bro, oh my God. Like I love spending money on ads because it's the best and fastest way to get a return.
Born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up playing basketball my entire life. You can't really tell on camera, but I'm 6'6", super tall, light-skinned dude. So everywhere I go, everyone just assumes I played basketball, right? But I was fortunate enough to play at the college level, and that paid for my education. I lived in a household, mom and dad, they put a lot of pressure on me to go to school, just kind of the traditional thing, right? And so that's what I did. I literally lived, breathed, and eat basketball. It was literally my entire life. Right out of school, I'm running drills with my dad. I'm meal prepping with my parents. Like this we're locked in. And the ultimate dream for me was to play at the professional level. And I was convinced that that's what my path was, and that's what I was going to do. And so I went the college route, and what I started learning at the college level. Because in high school, I was a really good high school player, one of the top players in the state of Utah. And college, I was playing really well as well. But one thing that you realize is like the level of competition, because the best high school players play college ball, and the best college guys play professional ball. And I realized at the college level, like, dude, I'm just kind of an average guy out here. I'm 6'6", I'm strong, I'm really athletic, but dude, so is everyone else. You know what I mean? And so it gets to my senior year, and I have opportunities to go play overseas in Europe, but these aren't like really big contracts. You can go out there and make 100, maybe 200 grand a year playing professional ball, and it was always a dream of mine. But I have a lot of colleagues and friends that went that route, and when they come back to the States, because in sports, you're in your mid 30s, you're kind of old at that point, right? And these guys were coming back to the States in their mid 30s, and they're trying to get entry level jobs, and that kind of scared me, because I knew. It was a gut punch, but I knew I wasn't skilled enough to make millions of dollars playing basketball. And I had to just come to that realization, right? So I made the ultimate decision and to turn my life completely upside down. And I dropped basketball and I went and got a corporate job, man. So I got a business degree in business management from the school I went to. And I was literally just online looking for jobs. The first one that I applied for was a trucking manager at a big trucking company. And I said, let's just give it a shot. They gave me a shot. I did the interview. They gave me the job right on the spot. And I was too scared to like tell them, hey, I'm still kind of weighing my options. So like I shook their hand right then and there on the spot. And I took the very first job interview I've ever done in my life. And so I've always been like a really high performer, like very competitive. And that's just because of, my parents that really instilled that in me with sports and being, just being an athlete. And so I took my work very, very, very serious. I was the youngest guy there at that company. But, I just take a lot of pride in it. And I worked really, really hard. And I was able to be one of the top producers at that company in a short amount of years. And I always tell the story. So one of the days we went out for a lunch with a lot of our colleagues, and some people are getting some drinks, for lunch. And when people start drinking a little bit, maybe they kind of share a little too much information, right? And everyone started talking about their salaries. And I was like, wait. Like, I'm the highest performer here, but I'm by far the lowest paid. And that's just because of my tenure. That's just how corporate America works, right? And that really, really bothered me. So, a few weeks later, I put in a request to have some time off for vacation, and that was denied because someone else was taking a vacation at that time. And I was like, all right, I've got to find a job where I will be paid based on my performance, not necessarily my tenure. And that's kind of when I started looking around, and I stumbled across the insurance business. And I fell in love right away, man, because I knew this was the vehicle that I wanted. I can be the competitive guy that I want, that I am, and I can be paid truly based on what I put into it. And so that was January of 2019 when I started the insurance business. And fast forward now, we have an insurance agency with over 200 writing agents selling millions and millions of dollars a year of insurance. So, and Paul, obviously, I learned a lot from you there as well. And yeah, so that was kind of my journey into entrepreneurship. I felt like I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I just didn't really know how I was going to do it, and that was just a vehicle for me. So.
Well, dude, the one thing I want to point out too is like having enough self-awareness, right? And Brent, we talked a lot about this, like to know like, all right, this season is now coming to pass, and where do I need to go adjust and move to be the best I can be in this next season that's before me? And I think that's a very hard thing to go through. And as you kind of pointed to, like, man, it wasn't easy, but I kind of came to the conclusion of like, all right, I'm not going to make millions of dollars in basketball. So let me pause real quick and say, what's my next best move? And I just love how you served that season with excellence, with everything you had, whether that was meal prepping as a young kid. Like you never like sat back and said, let me drop down a little bit because I don't really think this is going to be where I'm going to flourish or be here long term. No, you gave it your all the way until the last minute, but you're enough self-aware to say, hey, where should I go now? What's my next best move? I'm competitive, right? I wanna win. I like business. And so let me do this. And then even to the point where you had that conversation, you could either easily said, well, I'm just gonna have to endure the years and eventually I'll get those guys' salaries. But you're enough self-aware to say, man, I'm a competitor. And this isn't right. I want to be in a production, like a producer state environment that the producer gets rewarded. And I just think that's important, man. I think that two takeaways I'd say just from the intro would be one, ask yourself like, is my awareness at the right level to know, is this the season I'm supposed to still be in, or has God called me into a different season, but I don't want to let go of this because it's just what I wanted. Because sometimes what you wanted is not what's needed from you to go out there and serve the next season. That's going to really take you to the fulfillment in the place that you need to be. And the second thing is, or if you're still going to be there for a period of time, are you serving that season with your whole heart? Or are you saying, well, my boss is this, or this situation is that, or because of this, I'm just giving it a little bit? No, man, you got to serve it with your full heart, because if you serve that season with your full heart, the door will open up and God will let you walk into the next door because you've served the one with your full heart as if you're working unto God, not for any human master situation, but no, I'm serving this with excellence. And now that door opens that would have never opened if you're just half-heartedly just kind of getting by. And I just think that's an important thing to kind of highlight, because I think most people mess it up, man.
Yeah, I love it because I'm listening to your story, man. And so for me, I played high school football, went the college route, and so as you're talking, I'm reminiscing, back on my journey as well. And I remember my senior year of college, a lot of the guys were going to play in Europe. I remember I went to a combine, not the NFL combine, but they had like all the lower tier combines that you can go to. And I remember showing up there, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to NFL, bro. Like this is not it. So I remember contemplating going and playing in Germany, and the contracts were just crazy. And so I started working too. And so there was like that period of my life where I was trying to figure out like, who am I? Because my whole entire life I had played football and everything is super structured. And then you get a regular job and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. So as he's talking, I'm reminiscing and then I'm reflecting even with my own boys right now that we're on this journey, right? Every kid has a dream to be pro. And so there's so many good takeaways that come from sports, but there is a time in life where you got to go, well, maybe I'm not the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. But the good thing is all those life lessons that were learned along the way, you can now take and put into a different purpose in a different season, a different time. And so talk about maybe the transition from maybe trucking into insurance. How was that? Like, did it feed that competitive edge for you? Or was it like, okay, now I have something I could really finally step into and be who, yeah, maybe I could apply all my skills into that right season. Cause that was it for me. When I got a 9 to 5 job, man, I was lost. I quit 2 or 3 jobs before I started my own business. And it was just a struggle. And then once I was finally like out on my own, I was like, now everything rests on my shoulders. Now I can perform. Now if I win, it's on me, or if I lose, it's on me. Was it kind of like the same for you?
Hey, you guys, by the way, have like the same. I'm sitting here thinking you guys have the same story because then you got an insurance.
We're probably cousins, bro.
Once you got like
Probably are.
very
Yeah, I
similar.
got insurance.
Yeah, Brian got an insurance too. But he got in at a season that was very difficult to join. Right. That was before you got Isaiah. We had to figure things out. It was a little easier for you when you guys started. When Brand got started, then it was a disaster, right? And so, but anyways, very similar.
And then
man.
pivoted from there and started my own company.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, man, very same feelings that you experienced. I was really stressed. I mean, financially, I was doing okay because I was really young. I didn't really have that many bills. I had roommates. I owned my own house at that point. So I bought a house with the salary that I had. I was able to qualify for a loan at least. And, I had roommates. So like I was making like $100 a month with, all the rent from all the rooms I was renting out from my friends. So I wasn't financially stressed, but I was stressed out because I knew that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Right. And, yeah. So, I had even, it's kind of counterintuitive because you go into a business that's now, you don't have the safety net of the weekly salary that comes in. You only kill what you eat in the commission-based world, right? But I still had a sense of peace where I was like, I'm free, right? And when you work the corporate world, there's like this, people say that you escape on the weekends, like, because you're escaping from your job. Can't wait for Friday night or the weekend, to escape the world. And I definitely experienced that. I remember on Wednesday, I'm like, okay, just 2 more days until it's Friday. Right. I remember kind of going through those, those emotions. So, the transition to insurance in the beginning, financially, I did feel a little bit of pressure for sure because it was something new. I was learning. A little bit introverted, so like we were doing everything face to face. I'm like knocking on people's doors. That was a really, definitely a big learning curve for me. But I figured, what's worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, I'm a very employable person. I've got a business degree. Let me give this everything that I've got, just kind of like everything I've done in my past. I'm gonna give this everything that I've got. Worst case scenario, I can always, I always have some sort of backup plan. So I gave it everything that I got. And there was a lot of seasons where I felt like it wasn't for me. I remember calling my mom after an insurance appointment, and the appointment that I had, the guy was like asking me all these questions. He knew that I was new, and he was definitely he was definitely messing with me, and he knew I was stressing out. I wasn't making eye contact with him. I was freaking out. He was asking like really high level questions I didn't really know how to answer. And I left that appointment without the sale. And I remember sitting in my car, and I was 30 minutes late to my next appointment. I remember calling my mom in the car. I'm like, Mom, I don't know what I did. Like, I had a great salary, bills were paid. I'm literally driving around, and I don't even know where I'm at right now, knocking on doors, trying to sell these guys insurance. And like, people are laughing at me. I feel like an idiot. What, I got a degree? Like, what am I doing with my, like, I got a degree and I'm out here knocking in the blizzard and the cold and like Utah. What am I doing? And I remember my mom just kind of giving me the reassurance, just the motherly love, and she told me just to give it everything that I got that day. And I actually ended up getting a sale my very last appointment that day. And I'm like, okay, all right, I can breathe today. And, you just kind of go through seasons like that. But, kind of what I learned from sports is like, you can't really get too high. You can't really get too low either. It's like really important to stay even keeled. And that's a skill set, luckily, that I kind of learned throughout sports. And it's easier said than done, but I try to transition that into insurance sales, and that's helped me, kind of get through some of those rough seasons. But I just kept on trucking along, man, day by day, and then every day just got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better as my confidence grew. So,
man, there's so much to
Yeah, I love
there.
it. One thing, just very quickly, what I was thinking about was so many people get caught in a trap, right? And so part of the purpose for this podcast is to let people know, like, you don't have to just be killing it in one area. Like, you can do good in every area of your life. And so I think a lot of people, they get the 9 to 5, they make a big salary, but then, like you said, they're waiting for Saturday. Bills are paid, everything's good, but man, they hate their job, or it's the opposite. They got too much time and not enough money, right? So I think number one, like what Paul said, you got to have self-awareness to know, like, and even what you said, like, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I'm not happy here. I'm not satisfied here. Like, there's more in me than my current situation. And I think that just having the self-awareness to say, okay, I got to do something else, despite even though there might be some financial pressures there or some uncomfortable situations there. And those are all the lessons that we learned through life and through sports and through mentorship. And it sounds like you had good parents to kind of speak words of life into you. But I think so many people, they're just scared to take that step of faith for whatever reason. So they work that corporate job or that place where they don't want to be for 30 years, and then they have so much regret and shame because they never took that step. And so I think part of our purpose is like that, to just push people off the ledge. And like what you said is like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You just go back to right where you were. And I think so many people are just scared to, because we live in a world now where everyone's watching you. Everyone can see what's going on. And I think we have such a fear of man and such a fear of what people think. But at the end of the day, it's about like, man, what are you called to do, and what are those closest to you? What do they think about you? What's your wife think about you? What's your kids think about you? That's at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. And so maybe that's someone watching today. It's like, take that step of faith. What's the worst that's going to happen? If you're unsatisfied and unfulfilled, it's probably for a purpose, probably because you're supposed to be in another place, another space, doing something different. So yeah, thank you, man, for sharing. That's encouraging.
I grew up, in a broken family. Both my grandpas left blood relative grandfathers abandoned my parents' family when my parents were young. So when both my parents are in elementary, my mom's dad went to store for bread one day, never came back. My dad's dad went to work one day, never came back. And so the history of my family was that the men left. And my dad, my mom and dad ended up living on the same street, same family history, ended up connecting and got pregnant with me when they were both 17. And what you do at that point in time, you got married, right? You fixed it by marriage. Well, they were divorced by the time I was 6 months old, and then my dad was never around. So the men in my family left. And so part of my identity was actually trying to prove myself to men. And we could talk all day about the unhealth of that, but that has been kind of my ongoing journey of trying to figure out, how do I just be myself? And a couple of things there, like I was born into change. I had a single mom. She got married again when I was 1, divorced again when I was 5. So my mom was 23 years old, had 2 kids, and was divorced twice. Brutal, brutal start. And so she didn't finish high school. My dad dropped out in 8th grade. So this is like, how do you figure this out? So my life was change all the time. 11 homes, 7 cities before I was a senior in high school. So I was born into change. I learned to navigate change. And we were just moving. You went through life by making decisions and moving on. Like you couldn't stay stuck. And so all that culminated my freshman year in college. I came to faith in Christ, and then started to get surrounded by some people men particularly, that I could actually look up to and help me develop in my own, like, just manhood. And my mom, I'm not to take away anything from my mom, of course. Like, I learned a lot from my mom, but including how to fight, but not physically, but you know what I mean. And so in my journey in faith has always been kind of like, how do I just be me and not continually work for the approval of somebody that's not there? And so having to just have my own sense of agency in that, and growing into that now at 50 years old, I figured a few things out, at least, so along that journey. But part of that hardwiring is kind of what it's kind of allowing me to be me too. So that was a lot of, I don't know if that answers your question directly, but hopefully that's a little bit of understanding of kind of where I came from.
Well, man, I think it definitely does, and I want to say there's probably a lot of people on here that are relating to what you're talking about, Chuck, that have grown up in a broken home, and different things have taken place in their life. And the goal, I think for one, that leads people to this survival mindset where I'm just trying to survive and, go from here to here, and just whatever's thrown out at you, the goal is just to kind of deal with it and survive. And then there's a point in time where, somebody steps out of that and becomes more self-aware, and then they take practical steps to really kind of deal with that, and use and take that and use it for the betterment and for good, right? It's like scripture says that what the enemy means for evil, God will turn it for good for the saving of many lives. And I feel like, we're best equipped to help our former self. And so I know you've done a lot in that, where you've now been able to help people that I'm sure have struggled with the same kind of things, and that have held them back. I know when we were in that meeting, I can't remember who, if it was Jason that had said that if you give somebody, if somebody's story is that, they didn't have approval, right? And maybe they're always working for approval from one of the parents. And they grew up in a tough situation. He's like, I can predict where you're at. You're probably very successful and very unhappy. And I think that's a very common thing, which is really what we want to unbunk and really kind of speak to with this podcast and our philosophy, which is like, you don't want to be thriving in just business, but then you're depleted in your faith or your family or your health or your fitness is not really where it needs to be because of an identity issue, something you haven't dealt with. How have you practically dealt with those things? I know you talked about mentors. Was it a long process? I know there's probably numerous things, but can you kind of spotlight and maybe highlight a couple things that somebody that's on you're saying, hey, I think that's me.
Hmm.
Maybe you can give them some
Yeah.
feedback on how to kind of get out
Well,
underneath that.
yeah, man. I think one of the things is that you have to realize that your past experiences, for better or worse, whatever those were, are your training ground. Like that's your training ground. And there's dysfunction, or there's gifts that are disguised, has been disguised as dysfunction. And that's how I would say it. So like the dysfunction of my life formed me in ways that similar, like it's formed me just as the positive influences in my life have formed me. And then to change that into like, wow, these are actually be gifts. So for instance, my dysfunction became a gift when I realized that change was home for me. Change freaks people out a lot. It causes fear. But for me, change was home. Like I didn't know anything but change. I knew how to intuitively navigate it. I had a framework to how to navigate that. I went to my stepdad's house one weekend, came home, and I to a different house. I didn't even know we were moving. And
Wow.
people say like, how was that hard on you? No, it actually wasn't. It was normal. It's how we lived. And so what I've realized is although that's a dysfunction, it was also part of my hardwiring that produces a gift. So one of the reasons why I can buy a struggling company now that requires change and turn it around is because I know how to do it. And so when I've been able to connect even the most broken realities of my life to how God has gifted me, then it becomes a new freedom.
Yeah.
And so being able to put those two together has been really, really helpful and freeing for me.
I think for me, as I'm just kind of sitting back and taking it all in, I love to hear stories like this because so many people walk through such moments of difficulty. And when you're going through it, I think for a lot of people, it's hard to see how there's going to be any light at the end of this struggle, at the end of this storm. It's like, yeah, I hear the testimony, but like I'm in it right now. And I said something at church yesterday that I think struck a chord with a lot of people. And it was like the unexpected places, it really becomes the birthplace of God's divine purpose for your life. And I think that's what you're speaking to, Chuck. It's like, man, all these changes, all these times moving, these were unexpected. You didn't expect mom to have, these relationships or move 11 times, but it's like, man, those places became the birthplace of like a divine strategy that God has been using in your life to now be in the marketplace and buy these businesses, and you have eyes to see what others cannot see because you went through these different seasons of life. Maybe talk to about your faith journey a little bit. I know you said you came to faith, I think it was in the ninth grade. Like, talk about what that process looked like. How did you come to faith? Paul mentioned you're a pastor. over. Are you in the Northeast? Is that right? Pastor the church at
North,
Northwest.
yeah, northwest in
Northwest.
Portland.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Northwest. Like, talk about maybe that journey. Did you feel a call to ministry? Did you grow up thinking I'm going to be a pastor? Like, how did all that come about?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that beginning, what I call is your sovereign foundation, right? You didn't choose to be there, but somehow God was involved in allowing you to have this formation and this foundation.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't waste that. So when you understand that God's with you all the way, in the end, you realize that he never left you. Like, does that make sense?
So
So
good.
um, yeah, so I went to church one time in high school, got free pizza and bailed. Like, I didn't want to stay and hear the speech. So like, um, that was my
Shout out
church.
to every youth pastor.
Totally. Yeah, there was a high school right across, a church right across the street from our high school, and they did something for lunch. But in college, I had this is actually kind of a funny story. So this guy's named Robert. I worked at a grocery store called Safeway, and which is more prominent on the West Coast, I guess. But there's this manager, first year in college, and I had moved out of the house when I was in high school, senior in high school. Um, my mom's boyfriend at the time struggled with alcohol, and we ended up getting a fist fight when my mom was out of town, and I moved out the next day, rented a room for my wrestling coach. And so I was already on my own, but my freshman year in high school or college, sorry, working at Safeway, Robert was one of the managers, and we'd get off work, and he had a wife, three kids, but we get off work at midnight or whatever, and go to someone's house and play cards or whatever we're doing. And he got transferred 6 months later. Didn't see him for 6 months. 6 months later, he just shows up in my check stand at the store, and I was like, Rob, what are you doing? And he's like, man, can you take a break? So I did. We walked outside, and I was excited to catch up to him, but I didn't get a word in. He just started preaching to me.
Mm.
And I listened to this guy for, I don't know, 6, 7 minutes or something. It felt like 6, 7 hours, to be honest, at the time. And I looked at him, and literally what I said is like, Rob, you cracked. Like, I got to go back to work, man. And I just went back in, and I just thought I lost a friend.
Mm.
And a couple weeks later, I go out to my car in the parking lot, and Rob's in the parking lot, and I'm like, this dude's stalking me, man. Like, this is crazy. And he's like, he apologizes, and he asked me, he's like, let's just hang out. You want to come over for dinner one night? And I was like, sure, man. I was like, oh, it was like a relief. So I get to Rob's house, no wife, no kids, no food. He sits down at his kitchen table with a glass of water and a Bible, and he starts preaching to me again. And I was like, no way, man. How do I get out of here? Like, I was like, this is crazy. Well, he starts reading all these passages, and I don't to this day I don't really remember all of them that he was reading at all, but I do remember at one point saying, hey, I believe that about Jesus. And he goes, you do? And I said, yeah, but I don't really know what that means. So he begins to walk me through some explanation, leads me through this prayer. And I was like, okay, I know, I believe that, but I don't know what to do about it. And so I guess I pray this thing. And when I'm leaving his house, um, I said, hey man, so are you saying that if I drive home right now and I die in a car accident, I'm going to be with God for all eternity? And he goes, no. He goes, that's what the Bible says, not me. And I drove home without a seatbelt on. No joke.
Mm. Yeah.
I just like it was the craziest, stupidest thing. But for me, it was like, I'm good. And I went home, I was running and up in I had this old Bible, and I just started reading it. I opened up the book of Mark, and I just started this journey. And so when I started asking all these questions, and then I got to this point, it was like, man, I'm basing my entire eternal destiny in what this book says. I should probably learn about it.
Yeah.
And so I heard about a Bible college 45 minutes away in San Jose, California. And I was up in Castro Valley, California. And I had a friend that was going to move there. And so I just moved. I hadn't even applied to the school. But if you know my history, you didn't just stay put, man. You just moved. Like, that was survival. So it wasn't like, it sounds crazy when I think about it. I just moved to go to the school and I didn't even apply. But I went to that Bible college just to learn about the Bible. That was it. I was curious about all these things. And then I started volunteering at a church, started interning at the church. I took over the junior high ministry, and then it just kind of kept going. And I ended up planting the church here in Portland in 2008, led that until 2020. Um, and yeah, it's been this whole walking with Jesus thing's kind of crazy sometimes.
I love that. Well, I think it's going to be a great transition into really kind of unpacking and getting into your mind about, what businesses to buy, how to scale them, some of the common things that you see. But before we get into that, I'd love to be able to kind of ask you this, Chuck. Obviously faith has played a massive part in what you've done from this business standpoint, right? And I've always said that I think some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the country are those that are leading churches because it's like you're leading a volunteer army. So you can't really lead from a position, right? You got to lead from relationships. You got to lead from this higher level of respect because of who you are and what you've done for others. And it's just a high level of leadership you got to lead from. But you've taken a lot of this into the marketplace and you've had massive success with the amount of the businesses that you purchased and sold and acquired and what you're doing. If you're going back to like day one, Chuck just getting started, before you've kind of, got into the marketplace, what would be like the biggest leadership principle that you would say that you've led with when it comes to faith that's helped you do what you've done in this marketplace? Like, what's the biggest faith principle that you've utilized and built your businesses from?
Yeah, I say I'm in the business of building up people and I'm using companies to do it. Um, and in the marketplace, in the secular mindset, you would reverse that. I'm building up companies and I'm using people to do it. And so from a Christian framework, that has really helped me. It keeps the focus on who, I mean, the only thing we'll take to us with it in heaven is, the only thing that'll be there is people. So,
Yeah.
and so that's how I see it.
That's so good. What a framework. I know. I almost want to just sit and meditate on that, Chuck, because I think that's such a big, big deal because growing people grow businesses. But oftentimes, well, I guess the question I'd have, Chuck, is like, you know, as you grow a business and somebody that wants to grow and expand and take territory and has got this entrepreneur competitive kind of person, right? I think oftentimes you can have that understanding of it, but then get lost over a period of time and start focusing on really the results and growth of a company. And you don't even realize that you're starting to use the people opposed to using the company to help build the people. Have you seen that play out with different organizations, companies, maybe for yourself? And then what's been the greatest thing that you've done to hedge against that taking place?
Yeah. So building up people doesn't negate like managing a P&L or holding people to it. Like that, it doesn't negate that. In fact, that's just training ground. So the way I think about it is how do I create mobility, economic mobility for people? Because economic mobility will create social mobility. It doesn't happen the opposite way usually. So it's like, how do I help this person grow? And sometimes that's helping them understand a P&L because if that business can't take care of people, then it's backwards. So if that business isn't growing economic or growing people in mobility, well, then I'm going to sell it. I'm out. Like I don't want to do it. And so losing that mindset, that framework helps me stay focused. And so I really enjoy business, but people make it meaningful. And so for me, um, like what one of the delivery companies I bought, this is just one example, but I bought a company, all the companies I'm buying are struggling or stagnant at best. And so I bought a company, a delivery company. There was a driver who I kind of liked, and that is one of my strengths, being able to identify people, but and put them in the right spots. But um, made him a supervisor and then a manager, and then he was running the whole company. And then when I sold it to him, but I sold it to him for what I originally bought it for. So I came in, bought it for, quarters on the dollar. I made money along the way. He built economic mobility, and then I sold it to him for what I originally paid for it. So he captures the equity and changes the whole cycle of his life and his family history. He has a history of abuse and neglect and poverty. and now they can switch it. So I made money along the way, but the framework protected me from falling into that trap that I think it's really easy to fall into.
Man, that's so good. I absolutely love that.